life can hit like a sledgehammer. But guess what? We hit back harder. Welcome to Affirm That Sh. Somehow I thrived. I'm Jennifer Rogers, your no BS guide to turning life's toughest moments into badass victories. Ready to flip the script? Let's affirm that life can be a bitch, but somehow we thrive. Welcome to today's episode of Affirm That Sh. Somehow I thrived. I'm your host, Jennifer Rogers, and today we're meeting Katie Rössler. She is a relationship strategist and a licensed therapist. And oh, haven't we all needed one before? Those relationships with ourselves and our partners can get pretty bumpy. So today, Katie's going to bring her story and what we can do to get through some of our bumps and battles in relationships. But before we meet Katie, let's hear her affirmations. I invite you now, in your space and place, to join us. Take a deep breath in, let it out, and repeat with me. I am worthy of a love that evolves, thrives, and inspires. One that allows both of us to flourish as individuals and as a couple. I am worthy of a love that evolves, thrives, and inspires. One that allows both of us to flourish as individuals and as a couple. I am worthy of a love that evolves, thrives, and inspires. One that allows both of us to flourish as individuals and as a couple. I embrace vulnerability as a path to deeper connection. I embrace vulnerability as a path to deeper connection. I embrace vulnerability as a path to deeper connection. I recognize that our imperfections are what make our love uniquely real and transformative. I recognize that our imperfections are what make our love uniquely real and transformative. I recognize that our imperfections are what make our love uniquely real and transformative. Stay with us. After this break, we'll meet Katie.
Hi, my name is Connie Walton,
And I'm Jennifer Rogers.
and together we are the co-founders of the Bicultural Collective.
Sacred Utori Collective invites you to come spend time with us March 2026 in this beautiful home in Broken Bow, Oklahoma. It's a retreat where you will find yourself in a quiet space with your soul sisters, reliving, replenishing, and reigniting your soul.
To find out more, visit our website at sacredutoricollective.com to snag your ticket to this beautiful retreat. It's a once in a lifetime and you don't want to miss it.
Hi, Katie. Welcome to Affirm That Sh.
Thank you, Jennifer, for having me.
You are so welcome. I cannot wait to dive into your story. So let's go, sister. Can you just take us right back to that moment when you realized your own relationship needed some changing and some shaking up?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, it was definitely two to 3 years ago, a very cold winter moment in January of my husband and I going for a walk together. And we live in Germany, though I'm American. And it was a particular weekend where we were in the mountains visiting his family. We went for a walk, and I had felt this just rage within me. Just something was not right. I was not happy in this relationship anymore. And it was just one of those moments where I think we all reach multiple moments like this, but I really wondered, where do we go from here? And I shared with my husband, hey, I'm not happy. how we're doing things is not working for me. I'm not saying we need to end this, but it's just not working. And I remember having a very long discussion with him because in the time prior to that talk, I had started becoming a little more blunt, a little more German is what I like to say, a little more, forthcoming and straightforward and just addressing things head on. And he noticed and he didn't like it. He married the American girl. So we discussed the fact that I had changed, and I said, "Well, I'm really just matching your style of communication." And that was a big eye opener for him because it was like, well, even if I am that way, I don't mean to be that way, and it really hurts when you're that way. And so that was like really us hitting the peak. But like, how did we get there? Because you don't just one day wake up and be like, "Oh, this is not working." We had moved to Germany at that point, probably 6 to 7 years prior. We lived in the States together, and one of those beautiful romances of he was doing his internship abroad and he met an American girl, and then he came back to do his master's work and get his first job, and we lived together. And we knew, pretty early on in the relationship, this was something unique and different. We were about 24, 25 years old. And we decided to get married, have our first daughter pretty quickly after that. And culture was always a thing. Culture was always a discussion and sort of in the mix. I mean, we had arguments about things like ketchup at one point before having kids, just stuff that you're like, what? But had some deep cultural differences. And the more we were navigating that, the more we're like, okay. And we got to a point where it was time for us to move to Germany. We'd both agreed this was going to come. We'd had our first daughter. I was pregnant with our second in the time we decided to move. I don't know why. We just, it seems like a great idea. Like, I'm pregnant, let's just do this. So we moved. I was in second trimester, had a 2-year-old.
Mhm.
And I thought, moving to Germany? Absolutely. We can do this. I've been there before. I'm a military kid. Moving's, not new to me. And we had lived in Germany when I was a kid. So we get here and I knew about culture shock. Like we all know culture shock. You move to a country and you're like, "Oh, why do you guys do that?" And I feel uncomfortable. I didn't know about reverse culture shock.
Mhm.
And that was the first sort of nail into our coffin of how our relationship used to be, where it was like, this isn't working. Reverse culture shock is when you move back to your home country after living somewhere for a longer period of time. And you're not the same person. You've changed, you've adapted. And in the case of my husband, he started his career in America. So think about that. That's learning business, that's learning health insurance, retirement funds, investments, 401ks or IRAs, all in one country. You're not learning that at 19, 20, 21 years old in your home
No.
country. You're not thinking about those things. So we moved to Germany and he's having to learn all of this with a pregnant wife and a 2-year-old. And we're navigating things like childcare for our 2-year-old because at that point I needed to be able to set up our home and do things, and she needed to start being exposed to other kids and learn German. So it was just this like chaos, and I had a very angry husband. And for me at the time, moving to Germany was a mutual decision, but also in part because I knew it would make him happier. Out of the two of us, again, military kid, I'll adapt, I'll move. But for him, being away from his home culture really was tough for him. So we moved. He was angrier, and I thought, what? What? Like,
It
how?
seems
Why?
backwards, right? Like
Exactly.
this,
This is
we should be moving forward to
not,
happiness.
it's not the dream. It's not the dream. This is not how we pictured this. It's not how he had pictured it. And it took a good year to 2 years for him to come out of that. He got better at discussing it. I got better at understanding what was going on because even as a counselor, I had not explored reverse culture shock until I started doing research because I was like, okay, I need to better understand. But the more women and men that I sort of interviewed in the process of understanding it, the more I realized what he was going through was so normal. And it was more about how he and I could communicate through it. So it was like, okay, that nail maybe isn't so heavy in that coffin, but it was really painful and impactful in a very vulnerable time for me. So we go on about life. We're starting to get adjusted to being here. When our second was born, a couple days later, one of my grandfathers died. And it was very sudden. And one of those things where I wasn't able to be there for his last birthday party because we just moved.
Mhm.
And I wasn't able to be there when he was rushed to the hospital because I had just given birth. So it was all of these things that stood in the way of me being able to grieve with my family and to be there with my grandfather near the end. And that piece was just the first experience of touching grief abroad.
Sure.
So I'm going through postpartum. I have the grief of the death of my grandfather. I have, all the family dynamics occurring, moving to a new country. We're still only 4 or 5 months of living here and going, okay, let me navigate all of this. And I finally started getting my footing and I met friends. I'm the type who builds her community. So I was like, I like bullet journaling. Who else likes bullet journaling? Okay, there's a group of 10 of us meeting once a month, right? Like, I like, I'm a mom with two little kids. Who else is a mom with two little kids?
Right. You're that connector. Yes.
I am.
You
And I
put
was
it
like,
together. Yes.
build what you need. That's
Right.
what I did. And so I created my community. Again, military kids, we're resilient, we're resourceful, started, really creating that tribe. And as I got into a place of, I'm going to start working again, I was doing my thing, finding my groove. I didn't think I could work in Germany originally, which was a lot of grief. When you've worked so hard to become a licensed professional counselor in your home country, and in Virginia, which is one of the harder states to get licensed in. And then to move to a country that's like license, degrees, I don't know if we recognize all of that.
Oh,
That enraged me. So I found my wiggle rooms. I found my areas I could still work here, and here's how I'm going to work here. And as I started really building up an online business, my mom died. And it was a call that was never on my radar. It wasn't like, oh, there's health issues. In fact, she had just retired, was going in a couple months into retirement, discovering what she kind of wanted to do next because she still had time she was 57 years old. So she's like, I'm retiring from being a lawyer, but I also maybe want to teach and I want to do other things. She was exploring those avenues. I talk with her daily, multiple times. One of those, my mom and we're best
I was
friends.
gonna say your energy feels like you're very
Yeah.
motherly connected. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
totally. I mean, I always say that like my compass was spinning after she died because she was so much a part of how I understood life to be, right? And so when my brother had to call me at 2 a.m. here, that's the other thing. We always don't think about time differences. It rocked my world. And I honestly would say it wasn't until about a year or two ago I feel like I came out of that fog and she died in 2018. So it because when you live abroad, it's a bit out of sight, out of mind. You miss calling that person, you missed writing them, but you're not in your old home. You're not driving past that place. You're not going to that church. You're not, none of the things that you would
Right.
have done with her.
Your daily
So,
and constant reminders, the bumping into the
yes.
friends of the family in the store, or the aunt you haven't seen that says, "Oh, right."
How are you doing? You've got family and friends who check, but for them, it's out of sight, out of mind too. I
Sure.
think, maybe met her once or twice, right? So that piece, I had not thought about how my grief was going to be extended. The grief will always be there, but even more extended that every vacation would be a shock to the system and a wake up call again and a reprocessing. And some visits to the States are joyful with sadness, and some are anger with sadness. I had to navigate that balance. So she died. We immediately rushed to the States, my husband and I. We leave our two daughters with my in-laws, and she had this home full of stuff. Very Southern woman. Keep it, because you never know when you need to use it again, right? I always
Right.
joke. I wrote a blog post well after, but it was like nobody needs three vacuums. Like we got a lot of we got a lot of things. So as we are grieving, and I'm only there for 2 weeks, so we're having to do the funeral and organize all the things. And if you've gone through that, and like it's so much paperwork, and it's calling so many companies and having to say on repeat, my mom died.
Yes.
I'm sending over the death certificate, like all of this stuff. And you're having to do it in such a condensed time because I lived abroad and my brother lived in another state, and I definitely didn't want to leave it all to him.
Right.
So I'm just going, okay. And in the midst of that, we're having to clean out her home because none of us live there. We don't want to keep it. So we need to prepare it to sell. So we're going through again, she kept everything, lifelong things. Our things from childhood. Do you pack it in a suitcase? Do you keep it? Is it relevant anymore? Do you want to show it to your kids one day? You don't know. Like in that moment, you can't think clearly.
You can't, you don't even have a moment to think. You have a moment to
Right.
breathe, not even catch a breath. It's
Right.
probably very short, shallowed, and just on to the next item.
Absolutely. And you're forgetful because grief, your mind goes blank. You can't think. You're tired. Everyone's tired because we're all in it. So we're cleaning out this space that I hadn't lived in years, and finding mementos. My parents divorced when I was 14 years old, 14, 15 years old. Finding their marriage photos, finding stuff from their wedding, and going, we got to get rid of this. But like she kept it all these years. Like her own grief journey were in boxes. And how do you honor and respect that, but also know the other partner doesn't want to keep it? He's in his own relationship, not like married to someone else. It's like we just have to throw it away. But you feel as a child of these two that got together, like, can I just throw away this wedding photo that's framed and huge, like back in the day when you get the big
Oh,
photos?
yes.
And I'm like, or my childhood photos that are huge and framed, I'm not going to hang them in my house. My grandparents already have them. Like, I don't need to so I have to throw these away. So it was this process of decision fatigue amidst, but we can't keep everything.
Right.
And, we've got legal documents and all this stuff. And we had these funerals in two different locations because where she lived was not where she grew up. And where she grew up, she was so loved. So we had two separate funerals. It was just navigating so much. It was like juggling a lot. And all of it was glass. It wasn't like rubber balls where you can drop a few and they'll keep bouncing. Like all of it really had to be done in that time. Um, and I came back to Germany and I felt like just a shell of myself because again my compass was spinning. I didn't know where north was. I didn't know if I should keep working. I still had my two kids. My 4-year-old was aware enough to know that this grandmother's no longer here, and she would just come into the bathroom occasionally, like get ready for the day, and she'd just start crying. And she'd be like, I miss her. And then I start crying too. And I go, I know, and I learned so much from my children about grief. They never once said, "Oh, I'm sorry for crying. Oh, don't look at me. Oh, on my face," or any. They just cry and then they go and play. And I thought, that right there is how grief is supposed to be. You let it come, you let it be, you move forward, and you
Yes.
continue about your day, and then you let it show, and you communicate it to the people who matter and that you feel safe with. Um, so I'm going through that. We have cultural differences around grief going on, not necessarily with my husband, but the people in around me. And so that piece was interesting to navigate too, how they felt about the uncomfortable situation, if they ask or check in or not, how involved. But remember, I had the bullet journaling group and the mother, child group. Like I had
Mhm.
those women who were like, we get it, we're here, let's help you. And crazy enough, for some reason, we decided, because we'd already been trying for a third kid, we'd just keep trying. Well, in true form, my body and my spirit were not ready. So I had two miscarriages the following year. And I just felt like I was standing up and like the ocean was like crash down.
Mm.
And I had a really powerful EMDR therapy session with a woman here. And I just allowed the water to engulf me and just drop into the bottom of the ocean. And I realized the moment I did that, I didn't drown. It's almost like this protective, it's like the ocean wanted to kind of hold me. And I allowed that vision to be there of a realization that I just have to sit in this. If I try to fight it, it's going to keep knocking me over.
Oh,
If
you're
I
going
try
to
to
drown.
ignore it, yeah, like it's going to be there. So why not just allow it to cocoon me? Because that's really what it needed to do. So we take a pause from trying to have kids again because it's just like, whew, this is clearly my body needs some support. And I started journaling. Well, comes the pandemic. And here in Germany, the lockdown was serious. Police driving up and down the streets. You're in your house, lockdown. It was very, very serious. And I was just journaling and writing out my grief, and I realized I had felt grief like this before and not related to death. The griefs I times I had experienced before were my parents' divorce. Like my life is this way, my parents didn't argue that much, and all of a sudden they're getting divorced. And being like, what's true, what's reality, what's not? Has this all been a lie? The things that we question. And then I realized, but I also felt this every 2 to 3 years we moved. And I had to pull all the roots up, all the memories I made with friends. And at that time, we didn't have social media, of course. So there's no like, stay in touch, post
Right.
pictures. There weren't smartphones. It was like, dial it up, hold the phone with the cord still hanging out and going,
You call in there with their
hey,
new group of friends. Yeah.
exactly. And you're like, you forgot me. I
I
have no
forgot
friends
about me.
yet. And so this grief of letting go. And so I just started to recognize that like grief is such a normal part of our lives. I ended up writing a book about it. My journaling turned into a book later on. But in that time, my husband was grieving the loss of a mother-in-law who he really was connected to, the loss of two dreams that of the babies that we thought were coming, watching his wife be a bit of a shell of who she was while still navigating reverse culture shock. This is all in that time frame still. And starting to work for his family's company, which he knew he would be taking on. So the things were piling on both of us. I honor and respect that because at the time it's so much easier to see my own journey. Now I can look back and go, yeah, the cards were stacked up against us, but we still like kicked him down and got like, okay, we got this.
But Katie,
Um,
how many of us do that? I lost my mom. I had to go through my mother's things and do all of this, and we don't recognize that our spouse was walking that journey too.
Yes, but we can't. I don't think we can. And nobody should go, okay, well, because if you start to focus on someone else's feelings while you're grieving, you make it about, let me take care of
Then,
you, right?
yes.
You steal away from your own needs and process. So it took me time. It actually
Mhm.
took a very hard conversation at a playground before that cold night of me going, I have made so many adjustments in my life to be here and live here with you and raise our kids here and to be in this relationship. And like, it's a laundry list. And what have you had to adapt or change, for this relationship?
It's interesting as you're saying this, I'm watching your body language and that finger is pointing
Yes.
and that's what we do in
Yeah.
life. It's so
Yeah.
easy.
Absolutely. It's like, I'm the victim. Look at all that. I'm
Yeah.
so wonderful. How dare you? And he very calmly but sternly allowed me to know we speak your mother tongue all the time. We don't speak my mother tongue. So I'm always having to think and overthink. Did I say that right? Is that what I mean? Is that what, it's not natural for me. And I do that for you. This isn't the career path I thought I was going to have. I shifted because I met you. I wanted to be with you, but this isn't the career path that I wanted. And it was like thing after thing after thing after thing. And I said, I need a moment. And I walked away because I was so angry still. Because whose ego likes to be like, actually, you're wrong. And maybe you both had to do stuff. So I went for a walk and I kind of started crying. And I realized, oh crap, we both have had to give up a lot.
Mhm.
And we both have gone through a lot. And I think what happens, I like to call it power couple burnout because I like to think of my, ego. I like to think of myself as my husband and I as a power couple. We're both high achievers. We're both firstborn. We're both stubborn. We're both goal oriented. We both run our own companies. And so here we are, also then in relationship with each other. And we're burning out because of life and in some ways our work. And we just hit that point, and I just started getting mean. And I wouldn't say mean, I call it mean because my American Southern girl is like, that was just, direct is mean. But I started getting direct and honest and not giving in and not being like, sure, we can do what you want. And he didn't like it because I was changing. I now know, looking back, that was my journey of perimenopause beginning. It's a 10-year journey. that most of us don't recognize the early signs. Now I can look back and go, oh, there were some hormonal shifts happening. That's what was going on. But at the time, it just felt like it was him and us, and this wasn't working. And so now we're back in January on that cold hill, and we're having the talk. And we both realized that we want to be in this relationship, but we have to rebuild it. It cannot be how it was. We've learned so much from being together. Now it's been 16 years together, 11 years married. We know so much more than we did in the beginning. So why are we still acting like we haven't learned those things? And that started the journey of, okay, what do we want in our relationship? What do we want it to look like? And it's something that gets to evolve rather than stay stuck. And there's a thing here that a lot of couples run into is personality differences. One of you is usually more flexible and a little more like go with the flow, and I don't have to have everything packed 2 days before the trip. I'll pack the day of. And there's one of you who's like organized Excel spreadsheet. I need to know.
I think you just peeked into my husband and I's life. Is
Yes, this is,
it's
yep,
all of this, yeah.
all absolutely. And that piece of us was coming to clash too, because rebuilding means the Excel spreadsheets don't work anymore. You got to start over. That plan and that 10 bullet points you've listed out of step one, step two, they don't work anymore. We have to start over. Well, that doesn't feel good to a planner, right? That's like, no. Like we had this decided from day one, and but there's a benefit to rewriting the story. There's a benefit to a new chapter. And I always like to tell my couples, every decade or so, you need to rewrite and rebuild. Esther Perel says that uh, every person will be, especially in the Western world, in 2 to 3 long-term serious relationships. And sometimes it's with the same person. So we often forget that we can rebuild our relationship with our partner instead of staying how it is. That for me was the start of the legacy piece that it left, which was creating the rebuild method for couples. And it's specific to couples who've been together long term. And now, even more so, I use it for couples who are bicultural, where one or both are living abroad. And why I say one is usually one moves to the home country of the other, or they both decide to move to a different country, but that creates different dynamics. I joke with my husband, I fell in love with the German guy in America. And when we moved to Germany, you were the German guy in Germany. And that, I don't know if I like him so much. Like, can you be the American German American? Like, can we bring that over here? Well, no, because American Katie in Germany, he may not like either. I've shifted and adjusted and changed. And American Katie in America may be way more of what he's used to, but we have to honor the fact that here's how we are now. And so when I work with bicultural couples who are living abroad and navigating all of that, we have those discussions. How do you fall back in love with the person that you're married to now and remove the you're not who I married? Of course not. You moved and you live in a different country.
Right.
Right? Like I've worked with couples where they both just chose to move to a different country and how they handled that country was different. So they became different people there too. So navigating the partner you fell in love with in one country is different than the partner you fell in love with or you start to love in a different country. This is the same in the States. When I'd work with people from the city versus more suburb country area, they have this clash too, where it's like, I loved when you lived with me out in the country, and now we're in the city and I'm anxiety overload and I'm
And
reactive.
you
Oh,
hear it, especially from those long-term couples too. You're not the same person I married 30 years ago. You're not the person I married 15 years ago. Well, I hope
yep.
the hell not. I hope I've grown.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's what I always say. Like, well, good.
yeah.
Why is that bad? And often what they're saying is, I don't like who you've become. And they don't know how to say that. It seems easier to blame and go, you're not who I married. You're not the man you were. Ooh, that's like dig, guilt, shame. Let's make you feel bad. Versus, I don't know if I like German husband in Germany. And when I could say that, he was able to say, I don't know if I like him either because there's a free spirit in America that I got to have that I don't get to have here because I feel like I'm being watched or I feel, all the different things like, oh.
Mm.
And that led to some really great conversations. But it took us going through a lot of different blows in the grief journey, reverse culture shock. Then my culture shock and challenges actually happened a few years ago as well. Thank you, perimenopause. Hormonal shifts are fun, where it's like, well, do I actually want to live here? Do I really want to stay in this? Is this what I want for the rest of my life or the next decade? Do I still have a choice? Right? Because often we get into this feeling of I'm trapped, I'm stuck, I'm in a prison. We use all these terminology, and we then create the I'm the victim and here's my jailer. And we don't stop to go, oh, there's no lock on that door. And I've actually created this. But my partner and I can now recreate this mentality to be our relationship house and remove anything that's like a jail cell. And we can better understand where are the power and control dynamics? Where is the desire for connection that doesn't meet up? Because we each have different ways of desiring to connect, and sometimes they don't match like puzzle pieces. So it's like, what is that about? And we also all have different desires of freedom and autonomy. And where are the boundaries around that? How can we respect our partner with that? I am totally the type where I'll go to the movies by myself, go out to eat by myself. I can have a whole weekend by myself. I don't need to talk to anyone. I am an extrovert.
Individualism. Yes.
Yes, I'm an extrovert. I love people, but I also so good at being on my own. My
And I'm
husband
glad
works.
you're saying that, Katie, because we have to still be ourselves in relationships. We have
Yes,
to do those things that lit that fire, that ignited us, that drove us, that got us through our downtimes before we were with our partner, and to stay
exactly.
reconnected. And you've said it so beautifully today, and I know you touched just on your rebuild program very briefly, but there are going to be listeners and viewers today that are going, I'm here in, for myself in Oklahoma, or for Portia, our producer, I'm in Ohio, I'm in California, and we're going through these things without this culture or reverse culture shock. And I need to talk to Katie. So, for those
Yeah.
that are feeling that connection with you, how can they reach out to you? How can they work with you? And then tell us about your book. Where can they get that?
Yeah. So to reach out to me, I love connecting with people either on Facebook or LinkedIn. You can also just go on my website, katierössler.com, and just in the contact form, reach out and share you want to work together. Instagram is katie.rössler. Facebook is Katie Rössler. When you reach out to me, let me know you heard me on the podcast and what you're interested in doing. Because I have a free relationship game plan call where we really sit down for 45 minutes, the two of you with me, and I kind of get my ears on what's going on and maybe what's really underlining it. So you at least have a game plan, whether you work with me or not. You get to decide. My book, The New Face of Grief, you can find on any online bookstore as well as Amazon. I also have a second book called Giving Birth to Motherhood. And if you've had a challenging or traumatic birth experience and you want to learn how to write your birth story in a healing way, so you can tell your kids about it too, because their birth story is important. And if we got to be able to talk about it without crying every time and not nostalgic, but the pain mode, being able to do that. So you can find that book as well online. If you just search my name on Amazon or any bookstore, you're going to find them.
Katie, thank you for your time today. Thank you for your energy, your wisdom, the funness that you've brought to a very needed conversation.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You just took another step towards owning your story and thriving against all odds. This is Affirm That Sh. Somehow I thrived. If you're ready to keep kicking ass, subscribe now and let's keep breaking barriers together. Remember, life's a battle, but somehow you'll thrive.